Hello everyone, my name is Prapti Goyal and welcome back to my vlog. Today I will be discussing about the impact of industrialization and globalization on ethical and sustainable business practices. Industrialization with its focus on mass production and technological innovation has propelled economic growth worldwide. However, it's also brought about environmental degradation and social inequalities. On the other hand, globalization has interconnected markets and economies, presenting businesses with both opportunities and challenges. Think about it this way: with industrialization, we have seen incredible advancements in manufacturing processes, making goods more accessible and affordable. But behind the scenes, there are often environmental consequences like pollution and resource depletion, not to mention issues like unfair labor practices and exploitation. Take the fashion industry for example. Fast fashion has boomed thanks to industrialization and globalization, but it's notorious for its environmental footprint and unethical labor practices in developing countries. On the flip side, globalization has opened new markets and opportunities for business to expand their reach, but it's also raised questions about cultural similarities and the exploitations of workers in developing countries. Look at the multinational corporations like Nike or Cola. They operate in multiple countries which can bring economic benefits, but they have also faced criticism for their labor practices and environmental impact. Now we are diving into a fascinating topic that's often discussed in history class: industrialization. You might have heard of it, but do you know just how much it changed the world? So let's start with the basics. Industrialization was a game changer that happened mainly in Europe and North America during the late 1700s and early 1800s. Before this period, economies were largely agrarian-based, relying on farming and manual labor. But then came the Industrial Revolution. Fueled by incredible inventions like the steam engine, suddenly everything was mechanized, from textile production to mining and steel making. Factories sprang up everywhere, drawing people from rural areas into the cities in search of work. Now here's where things get interesting. While industrialization brought economic growth and technological progress, it also had some serious downsides. Workers in these factories faced grueling conditions like long hours, low wages, and unsafe environment. Imagine working 12-hour shifts in a noisy, dirty factory, barely making enough to survive. It's no wonder that labor movement started cropping up, fighting for better pay and working conditions. But industrialization wasn't just about factories and work, it also transformed global trade and commerce. European power used their colonies as source of raw material while flooding markets worldwide with manufactured goods. This economic boom paved the way for modern infrastructure and transportation systems. Railways crisscrossed continents and connecting distant regions like never before. But let's not forget about the environmental impact the industrialization brought, like pollution, deforestation, and other forms of ecological degradation. It's a reminder that progress often comes at a cost. So why does all this matter today? Well, understanding the history of industrialization helps us grasp its lasting legacy. It shaped the world we live in, from our cities and economies to our social and environmental challenges. Now we will talk about something that affects each and every one of us: climate change. But let's specifically dive into how industrialization has played a massive role in shaping the climate crisis we are facing today. You see, back in the day during the Industrial Revolution, humans started relying heavily on fossil fuels like coal and oil to power our factories, transportation, and homes. Now, while these fuels provided the energy needed to be fuel our booming industries, they also released a ton of greenhouse gases, especially carbon dioxide, into the atmosphere. And here, Kekan, those greenhouse gases trap heat into our atmosphere, leading to a phenomenon we know as global warming. But it doesn't stop there. Industrial activities like deforestation and changes in land uses have also played a part in exacerbating the climate crisis by reducing the Earth's capacity to absorb carbon dioxide. So what does all of this mean for us? Well, we are already seeing the effect. Rising temperature, melting ice cap, more frequent and intense extreme weather events, and shifts in precipitation patterns. Now, let us look into the differences in ethical and sustainable business practices between two countries, US and Japan. We will see how the policies and regulatory framework changes with changing needs. First up, let's talk about environment sustainability. In the US, there is a heavy reliance on market forces and technological innovation to address environmental issues. While the EPA sets regulations, enforcement can sometimes be lacking. On the other hand, Japan takes a stricter approach with the strong regulations and a focus on resource efficiency and waste reduction. They have heavily invested in renewable energy sources like solar and wind power. For example, the US has a lower carbon footprint due to its dependence on fossil fuel, while Japan has made significant strides in transitioning to clear energy sources. Next, let's talk about labor practices. In the US, there are minimum wage laws, but worker protections can vary by state. There is a focus on individual bargaining and free markets. Meanwhile, in Japan, there is an emphasis on long-term employment and company loyalty with stronger work protections and benefits. For instance, the US sees a higher rate of worker turnover compared to Japan, where lifetime employment is more common. However, concerns exist about limited worker mobility in Japan. Now, let's get into the corporate governance. In the US, there is a heavy emphasis on shareholder value and short-term profits. Board of directors often prioritize financial returns over social or environmental concerns. In contrast, Japan focuses more on long-term shareholder value, including employees, customers, and communities. So as we can see, both the US and Japan have their own strengths and weaknesses in the ethical and sustainable business practices. The US market-driven approach fosters innovation but can lead to environmental and labor concerns, while Japan focuses on social responsibility, creates a more stable workforce but may limit flexibility. Perhaps the ideal approach lies in convergence, the US adopting more stringent environmental regulations and Japan increasing corporate transparency. It's time to wrap up our discussion on ethical and sustainable business practices. By far, we have explored the contrasting approach of the US and Japan. But now, let's talk about what we can learn from them and how we can move forward. So here's the deal. Achieving ethical and sustainable business practices isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. It requires understanding the strength and weakness of different approaches like those demonstrated by the US and Japan. By learning from each other's experiences and implementing targeted recommendations, businesses and policymakers can strive towards a more balanced and responsible approach to commerce. In conclusion, the impact of industrialization and globalization on ethical and sustainable business practices is both profound and complex. While these forces have accelerated economic growth, they have also led to environmental degradation, labor exploitation, and social injustice. Moving forward, it is imperative for businesses to prioritize ethical and sustainable approaches, fostering collaboration among government, businesses, consumers, and stakeholders. By integrating sustainability principles into their operations and advocating for systematic change, businesses can shape a future that prioritizes ethics and sustainability. So let's all come together for a better future.